Well, good evening. In some extraordinary breaking news tonight, the government is forcing chlorination on every Christchurch resident in this city, despite calls from nearly everybody inside council that they don't want or we don't want chlorination. It's been a hard-fought battle, but today the council apparently lost that battle. The Mayor is outraged. He couldn't make this interview because he's in civic duties today, but joining me is Christchurch City Councillor Sam Macdonald. Good evening to you.
Hi, Chris.
Have I got it right? Essentially, chlorination in the Christchurch's water supply is here to stay, plus more is going to be added?
That's correct. So we've, as you know, and as you mentioned, we've been doing a massive program of work for quite some time in order to remove chlorination from the city's water supply. We've applied for some water safety plan exemptions at the moment. We've had a response from the regulator saying, actually, no, we're declining these. And what we've been told is actually the bar is going to be that high through the government regulator that actually chlorination looks set to be stuck in our system for in perpetuity.
This is a massive concern because I note that the Christchurch City Council has spent millions and millions of dollars on those wellheads, above the ground wellheads, below the ground wellheads, to try and make sure it could meet the new imposed government standards. And at one stage, it was looking like we could. Has anything changed, or has this government regulator just written to the council today and said, sorry, chlorine's here to stay, in fact, more is on the way?
Yeah, so we've always been optimistic that the millions or tens of millions of dollars that we've put into infrastructure on behalf of the people of Christchurch has meant that we would get to a point where it's removed. I guess the good news is that money isn't lost because we've actually lifted the quality of the infrastructure right across the city. But ultimately, where the regulator has fallen short has said that actually they basically won't tolerate any risk in the supply system. Ultimately, people have not got sick from our drinking water in Christchurch. We run a very good system, and we have a unique set of circumstances given where our water comes from, the aquifers underground. We've invested tens of million dollars each year in lifting this, and they've come back and said effectively, no, actually it's not good enough and it'll never be good enough. So, look, it's very disappointing. We're very frustrated. The Mayor has written to the Chief Executive of the regulator today saying, actually get to Christchurch. We want to have a public meeting in the council chamber so that you can understand the position because we've always been of the view that actually we can get chlorination out of our water, and that's ultimately what the city wants.
This is something the city has been campaigning hard for the past few years. So the situation as it stands today, there are some areas of Christchurch that don't have chlorination in them. Is that right? I'm not sure if you know the ins and outs of this. But does that mean that those areas now will have to have forced chlorination in it to meet the so-called government regulator?
That's correct. So at the moment, there are some zones which aren't chlorinated. But what they've said is actually, no, that isn't good enough. They will all be chlorinated going forward. So the team are working their butt off today to actually communicate with those affected residents, particularly in the smaller water supply zones, right across the Banks Peninsula and the like, where that is an impact, but also in the zones within the city where also that is a problem. So, yeah, we don't have any say in this. But the frustrating thing from our point of view is that actually the legislation that the regulator is set up under provides for Christchurch, or I should say provides for an exemption in chlorination, or what they call residual disinfectant, actually if you can meet a set of standards. The goalposts keep moving, and I think actually as Pauline Cotter, our Deputy Mayor, said today, the goalposts aren't even on this planet anymore. That's how bad it's got.
There was universal criticism and, in fact, wasn't every Christchurch City Councillor against mandatory chlorination in the city's water supply? I mean, this was universal, wasn't it?
Absolutely. We have a different set of circumstances in Christchurch. Our underground aquifers are actually the purest water you get in the world. And the real challenge is what you do with it from that aquifer through to the household. We've invested, like I say, tens of millions each year in protecting that supply. But, fundamentally, I just think you look at it and go, why are we not taking a risk management lens on this stuff? Why are we not being pragmatic and going, actually, where are the risks? Can we address them and deal with it? That's what our council staff have done for quite some time. But, I have to say this really feels a bit like the Three Waters, where it's removing local input, local voice from a situation. To be really blunt, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying it, but actually having a chief executive of a water regulator that I cannot name have this kind of impact on the people of Christchurch is frankly appalling. We
I
have
can't name
elected-
them either. I can't name this chief executive either. I think there was one chief executive that had to walk because of conflict of interest, or maybe it was the chairman. I've put a call into the government regulator today, and they said, we'll make a decision with the team on whether or not we have somebody speak to you. I mean, this is a big story for the people of Christchurch, and this is how we're treated. Oh, we may put somebody up if we feel like it.
Look, absolutely. This is, in the last 5 or 6 years, the biggest issue we've been dealing with as a city. We've lived up to the challenge, but like I say, the goalposts keep moving. And, to have a regulator in Wellington say that our work is not good enough is frankly appalling. But also to do it in this format, like you say, they should be fronting the media. They should be fronting us. And that's why the Mayor has written today to say, actually, Mr. Chief Executive of Water Regulator, get down to Christchurch. You owe us an explanation.
Can this decision be appealed?
Look, we don't think it can. I mean, I've had some sort of informal chats with members of Parliament this afternoon, because ultimately what it may be is a directive from, if there was a change in government, for example, later this year, that looked to be less prescriptive in the regulator. Because I think what we've seen, and we see it across a range of things, we get more and more regulated. There's more and more red tape, more and more jobs in Wellington, but no better outcomes. People fundamentally have not got sick from our water. And I think you have to start at that point and go, how do we mitigate risk? Spend money in the right places, but realise that actually in Christchurch and across the country, there's not a bottomless pit of money to gold plate everything. And I think sadly that's where the regulator is ending up.